So the All-NBA votes are in. First team, second team, and third team. And if you do some searching on Twitter, you'll find people have some problems with a few things. Personally, I don't think I'm outraged by anything. I think there are a couple of cases that could be made, definitely. But I don't see anything here where I'm just screaming up and down saying, what the hell is this? And I guess the one thing I'll talk about before I start diving into some of these is the problem with all NBA is it's too subjective in the sense of I think people care about like games played, which is why Gobert is not up here. Because I would say Gobert is, I mean, to me, he's the second best center in the league. And yet I have no problem with him not making it because he played like 50-something games. But someone else may not care about that, and they may put him over Karl Anthony Towns anyway for that third team. There's also the case that Joel Embiid played like 60-something games, and he's still in there. So it's just an arbitrary thing of however many games someone has to play and all that stuff. So anyway, oh, and the other part of this is that you can kind of mix and match. Like you can move some guys to forward when they're technically like a center half the time. It's weird stuff. So anyway, I think the first thing that I want to talk about is Damian Lillard on the first team, because this was one that people were going nuts over on Twitter. I mean, I get why there is some controversy because he did not have a good postseason, but this is a regular season award. And if we're judging it based on just that, then I think it's fair to have him up here because, number one, he played like the entire season where Steph Curry played like 60 games. Or no, Curry played around 50 games. Kyrie played around 60 games. Chris Paul was around 65 or so. And then you get to the Russell Westbrook argument, right? Because I'm pretty sure Westbrook didn't have like significant time missed. I mean, to put it bluntly, I just think Lillard was better than Westbrook this season. Like, I know he averaged the triple-double, but really I don't care. Like, the difference between grabbing 10.1 rebounds a game and grabbing 9.1 is, like, you know, irrelevant. To me, the reason why Westbrook was worse than Lillard this year is that, number one, his second best player is Paul George. His third best player is Steven Adams. And you could make the argument that Steven Adams is like as valuable, if not even more valuable than CJ McCollum. So Dame had a worse team around him, and yet they finished with basically the same record. But also, the thing that made Westbrook great last year to me was how insane he was in the clutch, fourth quarters and all that. This year, he was a bit worse there. But the other thing was Westbrook was just way less efficient this season from like the entire floor, really. Scoring, playmaking, his three-pointers fell off a cliff, his free throws were worse, he shot less free throws a game, and his turnover percentage was actually worse, even though his usage rate was also significantly lower. He was just a worse player, you know? And now I know some of that was just because he had a rough start and he got better as the year went along. But I think when you combine that with how good Lillard was this season, where he like never turned the ball over, he was awesome from three, he was great at getting to the line and finishing once he got to the free throw line. And then when you combine all that with the team that he had around him, I'm fine with Lillard getting that one. It is funny how Dame is kind of the biggest personification to me of how field goal percentage is kind of a wash of a stat, because like he shoots 7.5 free throws a game, where he shoots it at like over 90% this season. He shoots like 9 threes a game, where he shoots 36%. So the fact that he shoots 44% from the field is kind of irrelevant, I guess. I mean, his true shooting percentage was nearly 60%, which is considered elite, and I think that's a way more valuable stat than field goal percentages. So yeah, I'm fine with Dame over Westbrook. But once again, you know, if you want to have a conversation about how the All-NBA should include the postseason, I think that's a thing that could be, like, a, you know, I think that's fine. But it's not what it is right now. So as a result, we can't really vote on it like that. The next thing we could talk about is how Giannis did not get the into the All-NBA first team. But then I look at the names above him and I say LeBron. Okay, LeBron was better this year. Anthony Davis. I'd say he was better than Giannis this year. The interesting one's Kevin Durant, and this was the one that people got a little upset about on Twitter. To me, the biggest difference between these two is that Durant's three-point shooting is just in a different world than Giannis's is. Because Durant shoots like 6 a game at over 40%, whereas Giannis is like 2 a game or whatever. And to me, the value of that, just in terms of spacing and the defense having to care about you almost the moment you cross half court in Durant's case, is more valuable than any case you could make for Giannis over Durant. Like, was Giannis a better defender this season? Yes, he was. Was he around a worse team? Yes, no doubt. His coach also sucked as well. But I just think KD's overall offensive impact just a bit higher than Giannis's overall value, I guess. If we keep on looking at that second team, I think LaMarcus Aldridge is interesting. I think some people believed that Paul George should have been over Aldridge, or Jimmy Butler should have been over Aldridge, or maybe you could have even slid Gobert in there and gotten Aldridge out of there. To me, Aldridge was like awesome this year because the Spurs had pretty much no reason to at least be a mid-tier offensive team, which is what they basically were. They were like 17th in the league because they lost Kawhi Leonard, of course, right? But because of LaMarcus Aldridge, they were able to actually be a respectable offensive team. And what's crazy is he averaged like 18 shot attempts a game, and then the next guy is like Patty Mills, who shot like 8 shots a game over like the entire season. I think Rudy Gay averaged a few more shot attempts, but he played like half the year or whatever. So Aldridge really was carrying this team, and carrying it in a way that does not result in as many points as if you shoot a bunch of three-pointers, because Aldridge posted up like 9.5 times a game this season, and he was in the 80th percentile in post-ups, which is very good. So a lot of the times when he would score, it would either be through just, you know, he gets a hook shot, a turnaround, whatever, that's 2 points, or he gets fouled and he can put up 2 points at the line. And he was still able to put up 23 points a game. I think that's pretty damn good for today's NBA, you know? You got defenses hacking at you all the time and all that stuff. Luckily, he's on the Spurs, you know, they got spacing figured out and all that. So, yeah, I'm pretty okay with Aldridge at there. I also think his defense was, like, pretty decent this season. If we talk about Derozan versus Oladipo, I think this one is also cool just because while Derozan did drop off towards the, like, second half of the year, Oladipo kind of did as well, especially with his outside shot. So while I think you could have made the argument for the top half of the year that Oladipo was maybe a better player than Derozan, I still feel like you could have made a case, but it wouldn't have been like a stone cold case, and then they both kind of tapered off, so whatever. Like if Oladipo would have gotten that over DeRozan, I wouldn't have freaked out either. And then I guess after that, we can just look at some potential snubs. Now, I did mention Gobert earlier. You know, given just how insane the Jazz were once he got back, I do think I would rather have him in the third team than Karl Anthony Towns. Now, Towns played the entire season, and he was fantastic on offense, but the effect that Gobert had on the Jazz was almost like cartoonish, where it was like the moment he was back, they were just like the third best team in the NBA or something crazy like that. So even though he has a drastic disadvantage in terms of games played versus Towns, the impact he had was so nuts, I feel like I have to put him up there anyway, which I'm pretty sure is the exact opposite of what I implied in the first like 2 minutes of this video, so that's cool. If we can talk about Chris Paul, I think given that Curry was a better player than Chris Paul, even though both of them played like around 50-something games, and then the carry job that Oladipo had to do for the Pacers, given that no one thought they were going to be good this season, I think it's okay for CP3 to not be in there. I think a similar thing can be said for Kyrie. I do think if Kyrie was able to stretch out the season he did have to like 75 games, then that probably would have been enough to be over Steph, but really, the fact that Curry played like 50 games and he's still in here, he was really good in the 50 games. You know, I think it's a similar thing to Gobert, where he was just so good when he did play that I feel like it's fair with putting him in there anyway. And then after that, I mean, I don't think there's anything that's super glaring. John Wall was hurt a lot of this year, and even when he wasn't there, he just wasn't that good, to be honest, by his standards. I do wish Kemba Walker at least got like 1 or 2 votes, or maybe even more than that. Like, sure, I don't think he should have been in there over Curry or whatever, just because Curry was that nuts in those 50 games he played. But really, no votes for Kemba? That's a little weird, I guess. I shouldn't name too many guys who didn't make it, because then I'll just end up naming like half the NBA. I will say, finally, I think Horford getting the 32 votes, Jokic getting 28, Ben Simmons getting what he got, I thought that was all like fair. So, yeah. I don't really have any huge gripes with this All-NBA thing this year. So, yeah, maybe I'm in the minority on that one. I don't really know. I only skimmed through Twitter a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much it.